For our short devotion today, I'm going to read from Mathew chapter 22, verses 11 to 14. Matthew chapter 22, verses 11 to 14. But when the king came in to look over the dinner guests, he saw a man there who was not dressed in wedding clothes. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here without wedding clothes?" And the man was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot and throw him into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." When I was a little kid growing up in India, this is late 70s. I was probably, 6 or 7 years old. And I grew up in a very remote village in India. And one of the things we always look forward as children was once every week, an ice candy man will come to our village in a bicycle, and he will have this metal box in which there will be a lot of popsicles. And each popsicle, at that time nobody had a fridge or anything like that. This is a fancy item we could have. And I still remember for 10 paise, we will get the white popsicle, which is basically frozen sugar water. That's what it is. But if you have 15 paise, now you know how old I am. Now I'm officially old. I deserve the French air now. So I'm just there are no 10 paise and 15 paise in India anymore, but this is late 70s. So if you have 15 paise, you will get this colored ones. You have this pink and the orange and blue and green and all that flavored. So I'm from a middle class family and I couldn't afford 15 paise. So I had this 10 paise and I will always get that white one. And some of the rich kids will get this 15 paise one and the colored ones. And I always look at them eating. And I always thought to myself, when I become rich, one day I will become rich. And with my first salary, I'm going to buy that metal box. And I'm going to eat the orange one for breakfast and the green one for lunch. And I'm going to eat them all, right? I'm serious because when very often the richness is associated with food. And as I grew up, it's not that I ever became rich the way I expected it to be, but I lived a rich life because I worked for big companies and corporations, and I've had food from biggest hotels possible, 5-star hotels in Paris, and I never had to pay for it because the company always paid for it. So when you go to a 5-star hotel and have this great meal in front of you and eat from that, you really feel rich. It's an experience. You have to be there to experience that, right? So the reason I'm saying this, when we came to this resort, and for the last couple of days, and the Lord has been talking to us, and we have already become rich toward God. This is an experience of richness we have been going through. And now at this moment, we are going to feel rich. Because what we have in front of us is the most expensive food ever prepared on planet Earth. Yes. It is so expensive that nobody can afford to pay for it. If God came here with a check, at the end of the meal you get a check, you cannot pick it up. Bill Gates cannot pay for it. Mark Zuckerberg cannot pay for it. President Trump cannot pay for it. Nobody can pay for it. So God said, you know what? I'm going to give it for free. Because if I charge for this, nobody can afford it. So I'm going to give this for free. Amen. So here we are, the most expensive meal ever prepared, given to us for free. But there is a problem, right? Whenever something is free, we tend to take it for granted. That's in human nature. And I've heard this spoken by many pastors over and over again. When you do, even when you give out a tract, it is always good to charge it 25 cents, $1, just that. Otherwise, it's our tendency, it's free, and we take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of what happened to this man in the story. So this man was going on his regular day. I was talking to Binu about, driving all the way from Santa Monica to APU every day, an hour and a half on one way. So he was going on his work on a regular way. It was a regular day. He was going to work, and he was driving the highway, and he saw this big billboard with LED light flashing saying that free meal, take next exit. That's exactly what it says. It's funny. Matthew chapter 22, verse 9 says, you know the story, right? The king is preparing a meal for the wedding of his son, and you know the background story. And the people who invited didn't come. So the king is sending out his slaves to get people, and the verse 9 says, go therefore to the main highways, and as many as you find there, invite to the wedding. So the slaves are not even going to the streets and small places. They are going to the highways. People are driving through highways, and this big billboard saying that take next exit McDonald's or something like that, right? So here is that free meal, next exit. So this guy probably was going on some official trip, going to work, and then he saw a free meal. You don't want to pass on a free meal, do you? Right? Has it ever happened to you when you drive, when you go through Costco or grocery shopping? There is this sample lady standing there. Free salsa or something. I don't know what it is. It's free. I'm going to take it. Right? So you get a sample, then you take a couple round and go there again as if you have never been there and take one more because it's free, right? Load it up so that you can skip dinner or something like that. So anyway, this guy thought, okay, I'm going to take the exit. I'm going to get this free meal, and that was okay. So he went there for this free meal. But there was a catch, though. Whenever there is free, there's always a catch. Remember that. There is always a catch. There is nothing called free meal, they say, right? So the catch was that he had to change his clothes. That's all. Now, the cloth was definitely available for free, and I'm sure the king knew that because he just randomly bring people in. So obviously, the change of cloth was provided. Because the changing the cloth, dressing up for the feast was extremely important, because it was not about the meal, it was about the king and his son and his wedding. So this is not about food. This is about something bigger than that. But the man went there. He didn't want to dress up for the wedding because he has to go and take a meeting at 1:30. And he is in his suit, and very often when I go for a wedding, I don't like to go for a wedding mainly because I don't like dressing up. And especially when I have to wear a tie. I still don't know how to wear a tie. I have to go and ask my wife. She's good at it. She has taught me how to wear a tie many times, but I forget. So I still remember when we came to California 2012, and I had to do a wedding, and I had to preach at a wedding. And then I didn't have a tie, so I had to borrow some ties from Vasananga. I don't know if you remember. Vasananga came with a lot of ties, and then I picked one, and because I didn't have a tie. The reason I'm saying is this, but yet I chose to wear it because when you dress up for a feast, it is not for you are doing that. You are respecting the host. It is not about me. I don't like that. I would rather go to a wedding in my pajamas, right? I don't care about how I look or something like that. But it is not about me. It is about respecting that host. Now, this man was getting a free meal, but he had to respect the host who is providing it. And he had to dress it up for him, and he had to realize that it was not about the meal, it is about the king and his son, and which he refused. And that's why the king comes and asks him, and he is speechless. That's what is written. He is speechless, and he didn't know how to respond. See, when we come to this meal, there is only one thing that is necessary. We need to have a desire to change, a willingness to change. Now, that is very, very difficult for many people, because very often cloth represents our identity, I don't want to interpret what that means or what doesn't. But we know from our own general perception, Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs, the Apple founder who passed away, he always wore a turtleneck, a black turtleneck and blue jeans. It didn't matter who is in the audience, he will only wear that because it represented him. Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook CEO, he always wore a hoodie. It didn't matter whether he is meeting Billy Graham or, because that created his identity. And some of us wear a particular brand. And the brand clothes, actually, it's just sometimes the brand clothes are not even as good as the ordinary no-brand clothing. But when we put Calvin Klein or Ralph Lauren, it represents an identity. Now, when you come to this meal, we have to be willing to trade in our identity, surrender our identity, and without a desire to change, without a willingness to change, if we touch this meal, it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous. And that's all the catch there is, and the change is already available to us too. Now, as I said, I'm not a rich person, but I have had the opportunity to hang out with a lot of rich people. And one thing I have seen common in most of the rich people is that they hate status quo. They don't like status quo. That is something which really distinguishes rich people and the not so rich people. Because ordinary people love the routine, right? We like to do the same thing again and again and again because we have a sense of comfort in doing the same thing, hanging out with the same kind of people, but being part of the same kind of events. But the rich people, they don't like the status quo. They want to change. They want to make their product better. They want to make their company better. They want to make themselves better. And that is a driving force for them, that willingness to change. And when we are called into the community of Christians, when God prepares a meal for us, and He wants us to be pliable. That's the word I'm looking for, pliable. So that He can work on us. When He works on us, we should be willing to bend, leave out our identity so that He can create His own identity in us. Because if we don't bend, we will break. We will break because God is consistently working on us. So we have to remember as we come to this meal, we have to be willing to change. And salvation in Christianity is free because somebody paid a price. Amen. It is not about the bread and the wine. It is about the King and His Son. Somebody paid a price so that this comes to us for free. And 2 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 9 says, though He was rich, He became poor, so that through His poverty we will become rich. And we are here, we are being rich towards God because God became poor for us. And He paid the price for us to be rich. And let's go to this meal with that humility and the willingness to surrender our own ego and our own identity and who we are, so that God will make us and mold us into the image of His Son on a continuous basis. God bless you.